What's going on, guys? Welcome to Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. Now, this is the console version, so the menus are going to look a little bit different, but the gear is all the same, and I wanted to give you a Demon Hunter Marauder 6-piece build for patch 2.4.1. Now, there's some discrepancies. I think the Unhallowed Essence set might still be stronger, but they're two drastically different playstyles, and you can clear a level 60 rift with this build in under 5 minutes, and you can kill the level 60 rift boss in 8 seconds. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you the build. I'm going to run through a level 60 rift. I'm sure you can do, I mean, these builds are running, 75 plus solo rifts. So I'm just going to show you a 60 though, just so it doesn't take as much time, and just kind of see the speed at which this build kills at. So first, let's start off with the build itself. You have, I mean, you can set up your follower. We'll just run through your follower quick too. I mean, I have, the Nagel's ring on there with the explodey dudes and Bolt Kathos, so it drains life from enemies. Pretty standard. And then just your best shield and best sword you can give them. There's, heal, intimidate, charge, and inspire if you want to take a peek at that. To start off, let's go with the oh, look at that, we got is that another Yang's recurve there we just picked up? Oh wow, not bad actually. I mean, it's not as good as the one I have, but it's pretty dope. And actually I was looking for a Manticore too. That's for a different, that's not the best, but alright, so continuing on, obviously the weapon of the build is Yang's recurve bow. The highest DPS you can find, this one here, is 3347. You want 10% damage, highest dexterity you can get. You want to socket it with a Ralamid's socket item there, so that it doesn't take up another spot. The sockets can be added later. So obviously you want to find a Yang's recurve bow with highest DPS that doesn't have a socket to start. Socket it with the highest emerald you can get. This one here is maxed out at 130 crit hit damage. And it has a 4% chance to freeze, which isn't necessary, but I mean, it does help. And then obviously what comes with it. I rolled for a cooldown. Cooldown is going to be very important to this build. You'll see why later, because we do not use Dawn in the cube like most people do, okay? Second is your Marauder set. We'll go through that piece by piece. The gloves, obviously crit hit chance and dexterity and vitality where you can, and cooldown, again, 8%, that's maxed out. You can go to the shoulders, dexterity. I have percent to life with the health globes. You can, differ those, but important is dexterity. Cooldown, again, 8%, and resource maxed at 8% as well. The chest piece, highest dexterity you can get, socket it with the biggest emeralds you have, and sentry or multi-shot damage for the other pieces. So here you have 15% sentry. If we move over to the helmet, we have dexterity, vitality, highest diamonds you can get for the max 12.5% cooldown. Again, we're still adding to that cooldown. 15% multi-shot damage. Hellfire amulet. Now, this is almost maxed out. You want 10% crit hit chance, 100% critical hit damage, and for a obviously dexterity. And for a passive, you want either, this one has Cull of the Week. Now you want either Cull of the Week for this build particularly, or any one of these four: ambush, awareness, ballistics, or custom engineering. Okay, so that's what you want on your one of those 5. Wraps of clarity, obviously you want fire damage, 20%, highest dexterity you can get. I have all resists here, and highest crit hit chance you can get as well. And then obviously your legendary power there, you want to get that 34 as high as you can. Next is Bombardier's Rucksack. Now you want to have this on your person and not in your cube, because you're going to put Dead Man's Legacy in your cube, and the cube automatically procs the legendary power at full, so Dead Man's Legacy will proc at 60. This one doesn't have any, it's just always 2, so you're better off to just have a good Bombardier's Rucksack on your person. Again, with cooldown, this has 8% cooldown. And then sentry damage as high as you can get it. This one's at 91. It can go up to 100. Obviously 10% critical hit chance, dexterity, vitality. This one has a perfect 20% speed as well. Speed's not as important, but it does help. Restraint and focus. Those are the two rings you're going to want. Now, I have cooldown on one. It was a judgment call. It put me at about 50% total cooldown. This one has an 8% cooldown, so that puts me at right at 50. And then for the other ring, obviously, again, you want dexterity. And this one has damage booster. I'm still not quite convinced whether damage is better or if critical hit damage is better. As long as it's boosting it, you want to try to get it as high as you possibly can. And this one I just rolled for critical hit damage, but I think I was doing more damage with I had a 5.5 critical hit chance. I think I was doing 1.2, or I was doing 12,000 K there for damage. So that's kind of personal preference, but focus and restraints are what you need. And then obviously boots, 15% multi-shot damage where you can. Dexterity, vitality, and then I have all resists on this one. That's important as well. And then for the belt, you want Zoe's Secret. This one's got 100% resists. You want to try to get vitality, dexterity as high as you can. It has 3% the chance to freeze. Not as important, but I looked at the possible rolls, and I think freeze was 5.1 was the highest, and I think that was the best one out of all that I could have gotten. And then the Hungering Arrow damage, not as important because your main damage isn't going to be coming from a primary skill, so it's not as important. Now, if we go over to skills, we have Multishot as your main, Arsenal as the rune. That's going to be fire damage, and it's going to work with your ballistics. This is Arsenal's going to fire your rockets, ballistic increasing rockets, and the fire damage is also going to proc with your Cinder Coat in your cube. We'll go to that later. But it's going to reduce the cost of hatred for this rune by 30%. So that's another important factor. Entangling shot, I have increased hatred generation to 7, just so in case I am ever running low, because we don't have 100% uptime on vengeance. So this is kind of another, semi-important part is that rune. It's an extra 7% per shot. Or an extra 7, or an extra, was it 3? Yeah, 3 hatred per shot, which comes in handy. Wolf Companion, your Marauder set's going to have all your companions active, but Wolf is going to give 30% damage. Booster when you proc the active portion of it. Tumble for movement. Like Vault and Tumble for movement, getting out of tight situations. And then Vengeance with Seed, that 10% or that 10 hatred per second generation is going to come in huge for the Yang's recurve attack speed and on multi-shot, and spending a lot of hatred. It's going to keep your hatred almost at 100%. Sentry, you want Polar Station. Now, I use for my gems, I use Bane of the Trapped, Zen Stone of Vengeance, and Bane of the Stricken. Bane of the Stricken severely helps with boss takedowns at the end of rifts. If you're having trouble with that, you'll see when we do a 60 rift, you can kill a boss in 8 seconds or 10 seconds. Now the focus also important because it's a very, very high damage increase, and as long as you maintain your 50 yard, which you're going to be doing because you're a distance shooter. But this one I'm debating on swapping out Bane of the Trapped. It does do 30%, but I'm still having trouble sometimes with elites. So I'm debating on trying out Bane of the Powerful, but right now I still think the Bane of the Trapped is the highest damage you can get. And that, I said, procs with your Polar Station when you set up your stations. It also procs with your Entangling Shot when you slow them down. So there's 2 areas where you can proc your... this also procs Focus and Restraint, is why you need a generation, and Multi-Shot procs your Focus and Restraint as well. So there's your skills. We went over these already. And Ambush Awareness for survivability. Ambush puts you at a 40% damage, over 75% health of enemies. We will see in the cube, Dead Man's Legacy will take the other bottom 60% of the health. So there's only a 15% gap between when Ambush stops doing extra damage and Dead Man starts, which is pretty good. Awareness, obviously, for survivability. ballistics for your vengeance and your rockets, and for vengeance, okay, we said C, yeah, and then this allows you for 2 more sentries. Now the build revolves around 5 sentries being up at all times. A lot of people complained about the uptime and the setup time for the sentries. I've never had a problem with being below 5 sentries, and having all 5 sentries shooting at the same target in the same area is aided by something we put in the cube. So let's go to powers. Dead Man's Legacy, important. That's going to proc extra damage. Right after ambush stops, Dead Man's Legacy kicks in. Now your sentries and your multi-shots both hit twice under 60%. That was recently updated in the patch. Cinder Coat reduces the multi-shot cost because you're using Arsenal. This helps because we're not using Dawn in our weapon cube slot. Dawn takes 65% recool or cooldown time off of Vengeance. So if we don't have 100% uptime on Vengeance, Cinder Coat's going to help reduce the cost of multi-shot, so we still are able to shoot at most times. And then Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. This is going to help bring our Vengeance to an almost 100% cooldown, but it's also going to help us keep our sentries at 3 in store, so we can always have 5 set up where we want 5 set up. You'll see that when I run a level 60 Rift. And lastly, your Paragon. You're going to want to, for core, you're going to want to go max hatred, dexterity, and then you want movement speed at 15 if you have 10 on your boots. If you don't have 10 on your boots, you want to go to 25. Vice versa, if you have 12 on your boots, you want to go to 13. You can only have 25 max. Don't waste any points here. Max hatred, then dexterity, or dexterity, then max hatred. I did it this way because after you get to 100 dexterity, you can keep going up. And then vitality. Last, for offense, you want to go... I went cooldown reduction first because I wanted to get close to 100% Vengeance uptime. Actually, no, sorry. I went critical hit chance first, cooldown second, and then critical hit damage. You can reverse cooldown and critical hit damage if you want straight up damage right off the start. And then attack speed last. It's the least important. Resource cost reduction, life on hit, area damage, and then gold find last. And then I did armor first, resist all first, armor, life, and then life regeneration per second. That's kind of the order I did it in. Some people do it a little bit differently, but that's the order I did it in. So there we go. We've been through all the skills. We've been through all the gear. You've seen it all, and now let's take it for a spin. We'll show you the speed at which it kills and kind of how fast it takes down bosses. There's some discrepancy on whether the Unhallowed Essence set is still better. I think it still puts out more damage and is capable of a higher peak Rift, but I feel like at a level 60 Rift, this build absolutely destroys. We need that double damage to start off. Once you get rolling with this build, it's pretty dope. If you watch the bottom left, down there, you can see that we have 5 sentries up pretty fast, and that's when you're going to be getting your max damage. And we almost always have 3 sentries in store. Now look at Vengeance. Vengeance, as you can see, is done now, and there's still about I want to say like an 8-second, maybe a 5 to 8 second lapse. But there we go, we got it already. So it's not 100% uptime as you would have with Dawn, but you get the extra spot in your cube if you don't use Dawn, and you only have to... There's only about a 5 to 8 second, and that's depending on how fast you shoot. If you're in a group with a lot of enemies, sometimes it is 100.
Need more time. The Rift gun.
Alright, so we just killed, it's about 7 minutes, and we still have Vengeance. And we're gonna take out the boss in probably under 10 seconds. There it is. And there it goes. Boss is toast. Now, that's a level 60 Rift. Just kind of give you an example of what you're dealing with and how fast you can kill bosses. I think I ran out of vengeance halfway because I used it on this last elite pack over here. But little idea of what's in store for the build. But I hope you liked it. I hope you give it a try. Maybe offer some tweaks and comments below. Maybe some comparisons with the Unhallowed Essence build. But give it a shot, give it a try, and see if you can start getting up those leaderboards with this build. I love this build. It's probably the most fun build I've ever had, and one of the strongest I've ever had. So leave some comments below and let me know how you feel. As always, guys, you do you. Live life your way. Stay on the bean. Until next time, cheers, you beauties.